Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ken and I am a counselor helping men and women to work through their relationships, gain clarity, and also to work through midlife and quarter-life crises. And this channel is all about helping gay men to better understand themselves and also to have a better relationship with themselves and working through the various issues that we have. And speaking of challenges that our community faces, I want to talk about emotional maturity in men. And this topic was given to me by a subscriber, Freddie Jafar, and he asked me to do a video talking about why men, despite their biological age, act in a particular way where they may be more emotionally immature than what their age presents. And I love this idea for a topic because it's something that I talk about frequently, especially on Instagram. And it does relate to relationship building and is particularly pertinent for our community. So if this video is of help, please like and subscribe and let's dive in, and please share your thoughts on this topic below. Okay, so let's talk about my definition of maturity and immaturity. Maturity, in my opinion, is the ability to be able to look after oneself and also be mindful of the impact of your actions upon other people. So, in other words, are you able to reasonably take care of yourself? And that does not mean to say that you should be at the exclusion of other people. For example, I think it's a real height of maturity to know when to talk to other people, your close support network, therapists, if available, depending on your circumstances and also feasible, then it's really important to know that you have that as an option. And also, maturity, I believe, is also the ability to recognize when you need to seek help and also how your own actions impact other people, where it's like, okay, I can see that by doing this, I'm hurting this person. What do I need to do about this in order to minimize my impact in order to work with this person too? There's a bit more to it, but that's generally how I would describe maturity. Emotional immaturity is where you're engaging in patterns of behavior which you know are harmful to yourself, as well as engaging in behavior which is harmful to those around you, yet you know that it's harmful and you continue to do so at the expense of another person's social, psychological, emotional, or physical well-being, or a combination of all of those. For example, you might know you have a chronic pattern of gossiping and you use that because you need to feel relevant to the people that you're around, but it has a corrosive impact on your relationships. You also may have a terrible drug habit that you're refusing to kick because for whatever reason, it is part of your coping mechanism for life in general. That's one thing, but you use that as an excuse for your behavior and don't want to do anything about it. Then you might also be the kind of person where you feel like you just want to be single and enjoy life and not have to worry about being in a committed relationship. You con people that you're with into being in relationships with you because it's a matter of control and security, but really what you want is a sense of sexual freedom. So with all that in mind, the question might be, well, how does someone become more mature? Well, I don't think maturity is just about conforming to what our parents or caregivers are telling us to do. In other words, you can act in a mature way, but it doesn't mean that you're genuinely mature. If that's your survival in order to get along with people, that's still a form of immaturity because you're not doing genuine things and being mindful of how that also impacts you. So let's break it down. It's really this idea of like, okay, say for example, you've gone through a very difficult experience, a very harmful experience. It's that ability to empathize and be like, okay, I know that if I do this to someone else, it's gonna hurt. And I also know that if I continue engaging in this way, it's not gonna be good for me. For example, I've had situations where I've been online and sometimes I'm just looking for friends with benefits. And I know that if someone else is looking for a relationship, and even if they're a gorgeous looking guy, I'm not gonna go there because it's just gonna be a conflict of interest and then I'm gonna have to deal with the shame later of manipulating them. It's that awareness of how your actions have impact on other people and yourself. It's that idea of like, okay, well, if I choose to take this action, how's it gonna make me feel emotionally? And am I prepared to deal with the consequences of that emotionally too? And that could even be in difficult situations as well too. You might be in a relationship where you've been with someone who's very abusive and you also understand that you don't necessarily wanna do abuse to them because of the abuse done onto you. Fair enough. But you're then questioning how you choose to leave that person and also the impact it will have on you later. Chances are it may not feel good to leave that person, but it's healthy for you to leave that person in the long run, if leaving is an option for you. There's nuance and complexity to this, and that's stuff that you learn over time as you grow. But an act of immaturity on the reverse side might be someone telling you, you just need to leave this relationship. Because there's no empathy in that comment. There's no understanding of what that person's going through at such a deep psychological level in those abusive relationships. And that's where nuance and discernment with this is important. So now let's bring all of that theory and put it into practice within gay relationships and for gay men. So I suppose for a lot of people, or at least in my opinion, gay maturity can be, say, Peter Panning through your years. This idea of just being like, I never want to grow up. I just want to continue to go to pool parties and enjoy my life as I want. And I want to, take drugs. I want to just, sleep around, not have to worry about what anyone else wants. And you know what? This is going to be a bit twisted off the back of what I've said. Fair enough to those people who want to be that way. That's a level of maturity where you get to, where you're just like, I will accept the people who want to be like that and be appreciative of the fact that they swim in their own lane and they are allowed to do whatever they want. I personally don't want to be with a guy like that or have friends who are exclusively in that crowd because really they don't align with me. But, the question ultimately becomes, why do people stay that way? It's because it works for them and it's easy for them. And a lot of people are like that, and it also means that they are able to join up with people who are very like-minded and often work better in relationships with similarly emotional people. Now, with all that awareness in mind, it's important to be aware that when you're in a relationship with someone who's at a mismatched emotional maturity level, it's going to cause problems. Especially if you feel like you are more mature in conflict. For example, you might find that your way of dealing with something is to talk about it with the other person, and then they don't want to engage with you. They're rude to you. They don't want to take responsibility and accountability for their problems. In fact, they're sometimes quite narcissistic and make it seem like you're the one who's causing all the problems. You're the one who's making me feel this way. You're so sensitive. How could you say this to me? Are you cheating on me? So, that gaslighty sort of language. And the reality is that you have to accept the fact that this person is exactly who they are. They don't want to take accountability and responsibility for themselves. And they're probably not really prepared for the rigors of a more emotionally balanced relationship. And it is what it is. So what do you do about it? No matter how mature you are, you can't give that maturity to another person. But you can maybe help them empathize with your situation. So, for example, say you are in a relationship with someone where someone is doing something constantly and it's hurting you. And you try to explain it to them intellectually by saying something like, listen, when you say this to me, it really hurts me. I really don't feel good when you say this to me. And they're like, well, I don't understand. I'm just telling you the truth. This is one way of handling it. You can say, well, listen, how would you feel if someone said to you that you're fat, you're too thin, you're too gay, your voice is strange? Sit with that. How does that make you feel when I say that? And if they come back and say, actually, that wouldn't feel very good, okay, green flag. Hopefully they're aware that, such an action doesn't feel good for them, so hopefully they won't do that to you. However, it doesn't always work like that. At the end of the day, what I see for the gay community, in my opinion, is that there is a lot of emotional immaturity because a lot of us aren't being taught how to work through our difficult emotions and our relationship experiences. So without access to therapy, counseling, coaching, which understandably is not available and accessible to everyone, you're really left to fend for yourself and hope for the best. And it's just difficult as hell. Many of us have grown up in difficult experiences where coming out was extremely painful, where we've been bullied, we've had so much shaming around our body weight and also other experiences which have helped us to understand that maybe doing that to another person isn't good for them. And for all the gay men who never went through that or have tried to bypass it in order to feel popular and to feel loved, are not really dealing with what I call necessary emotional stress. I'm sorry, but we all need to go through a level of what I call required stress in order to be able to understand grief, responsibility, and accountability. So I think this is why we see so many men, despite their age, who may be 40, 50, 60-year-olds, even 70 and 80-year-olds, who are really horrible to other men, and other people in general too. People who, become emotionally reactive when they're triggered, who just take all of their previous hurt and just bulldoze through someone. For example, it might be the guy who, you say something about them and, that just sets them off, and then they, lash out at you passive aggressively in such a huge rage. And we've seen a lot of those men in the gay community. A lot of them have a nasty reputation for being extremely volatile reactors. There's also the gay men who feel the need to just chronically, sleep around because that's how they achieve validation, and that's why there's a lot of sex addiction. There's a lot of gay men who feel that, for them, life is miserable and it's horrible, and they gain validation by constantly talking about what's not working and not processing the unfairness of life, which unfortunately life is unfair and it is what it is. And the other thing to be aware of too is that I'm not saying it's necessarily bad that people are the way they are. It is what it is. It's just a case of the fact that people have found ways to adapt to difficult circumstances, or maybe very good circumstances where they haven't had to go through many difficult experiences for whatever reason or another. And really, it's up to them to learn from the difficult moments they go through. One man may have grown up with a very loving family where they were able to have a very welcome coming out experience. Good for them. I personally didn't go through that. And they also just feel confused as to why it's so hard for other gay men to struggle when coming out. And they just say, it's normal, my parents accepted it, yours should too. Again, we can see that's active projection and also a lack of empathy and a lack of compassion for another person and their respective experiences. And you know what? That person probably shouldn't be dating someone who's gone through hell and also needs someone who can empathize with that situation. And I also want to make this very clear. No one deserves to have gone through a lot of the stuff that they've gone through. And I'm not just talking about the necessary stuff, like grief and breakups. Like, yeah, of course, no one wants to go through that experience, but you kind of have to work through those because they're part of life's unfortunate parts. Hey, life also has great parts too. Love, support and connection from other people are some of the most beautiful things we can have in life. And so is creation. And unfortunately, we can't have it all. We have to accept the fact that life is lopsided at times. It's neither all good or all bad. It's just how we work through those respective moments. So when I look at people who've gone through difficult experiences, I don't want to invalidate anyone for saying, for going through hard coming out periods, difficult abusive family or caregiver situations, etc. It's really about understanding that, understandable, this has been a terrible experience you've had. But here's the key distinction. Doesn't excuse immature behavior. If you're the way you are and you're hurting other people, I'm sorry, your backstory is not an excuse. So to wrap up, yes, there are a lot of gay men who are emotionally immature. There are also a lot of gay men who are working through their tough times in order to be more mature and empathetic to those around them as well as to themselves. It is a journey and not everyone wants to be there or wants to get there because it doesn't serve their interests. It is unfortunately the way it is. So with all that in mind, if you are a person who's looking for more emotionally evolved friends, it's just like dating, it's just like searching for a house, it's just like finding a good job. It's about understanding who your crowd is and also understanding the kind of people that you want more of in your life too. The odd immature friend here and there is not going to hurt you, but if you're hanging around with that person too much and it's causing you grief, you might want to rethink your amount of accessibility you have with that person. The point of all of this is just to say that it's important to know what impacts you and your impact on other people, and also conversely, the kind of people you want in your life that impact your peace and your well-being to others. And look, if you are a man who is looking for support in also working through some of the tough times you've had, you are more than welcome to work with me by clicking on the application link below in the description of this video. And also separate to that too, if I'm not a good fit, there's other places you can go to as well. There's recovery programs for those of you who are working through a lot of compulsive things that you need support for. There's also therapy, psychology, and those outlets may not be available to everyone, in which case maybe just being aware of the people that are around you and who you go to talk to, and being aware of also the kinds of people in your life and how they make you feel. Not everyone has access to people like myself or also to therapists who can empathize, especially with the gay community. I see a lot of gay men who are very understandably frustrated that they can't even see a therapist who actually understands and empathizes with their situation because they haven't worked through their own crap, or they're not even gay and therefore can't understand what we go through as a community. Anyways, thank you very much for watching this video. I really appreciate you sticking around. If this video is of any value, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And if you want to share your own experiences too with the immaturity that you've personally faced from other men in the community, please drop it below, because it really does help to create a space for safety and empathy to talk about these sort of situations, because I think it's really important to be aware that we do go through tough times and it's good to talk about them in a safe space. And if here's not the right space, there are plenty of other people that you can turn to within reason, if they're accessible to you, to talk about your tough times too. I will be back again next week with another new video, but until then, thank you very much for watching and I look forward to seeing you again, guys. Bye-bye.